Discover the haunted cabin. Exposed secrets of sinister forbidden terrors in HD 202. Emily stood at the threshold of the decrepit cabin, her heart racing. Tattered old wood groaned under a weight of unspoken stories. The forest loomed behind, dark and ominous like a predator watching. Shadows inched closer, flickering at the corners of her vision. She could swear the wind whispered her name. Felt wrong. So wrong. Just when she thought her crumbling life couldn't get worse, she found herself here, at the mercy of an unsettling past that had buried its secrets deep beneath the roots of these trees. Inside, her children wandered through the gloom, their laughter silenced, replaced by an eerie stillness. A chill crept up Emily's spine. She glanced at the drawings their small hands had created. Distorted figures stared back at her from the pages, twisted, unsettling shapes that mirrored the dark folk tales the locals whispered about. A vengeful forest spirit. She shuddered. What kind of pull did this place have over her family? A sudden crash echoed outside. Emily whipped around, her breath hitching. Was that the wind or something far worse? The sound seemed to echo from the forest, growing louder, each rustle a warning, each gust a whisper. In a flash, she found herself clutching her children, their little hands cold in hers. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Days turned into a blur. The sweet whispers of nature twisted into unsettling echoes. Townsfolk, who once exchanged pleasantries, now cast furtive glances and whispered warnings. One particularly strange neighbor slipped notes under her door, cryptic messages laden with folklore's weight. Leave before it claims you, and the forest doesn't take kindly to trespassers. Each message sent shivers down her spine. But who could she turn to? The sheriff dismissed her concerns, leaving her feeling unmoored and vulnerable. Emily's dread peaked when she confronted her children about the drawings. Their silence spoke volumes. Where did you find these? She pressed. They merely stared, hollow-eyed, then returned to the window, drawn to the flickering shadows outside. Panic lodged in Emily's throat as she realized they had slipped outside to play in the gathering twilight. As night cloaked the cabin in darkness, dread nestled deep in her bones. The woods hummed with a sinister life. Every snap of a branch felt like warning. And when she saw a flash of silver amongst the trees, her heart froze. A glimpse of her husband? He looked lost, terrified, like he had been waiting for her all along. Emily suddenly stumbled over the entwined roots in the floor of her reality. The more she pieced together the town's history, the more shadows seemed to encroach. The family's dark past tied into the spirit's power, its influence spreading like ivy across her thoughts. Desperation clawed at her, while the lines between friend and foe blurred painfully now, with the specter of dread tightening around her. Emily faced the unthinkable. A night when her children vanishing into the woods felt inevitable. Just as the trees whispered to them, calling forth an inevitability she resisted, the weight of her family's haunted history echoed in her mind. Caught in a spiral of terror, she prepared to venture into the forest's embrace. Would she find her children, or succumb to the same darkness that consumed her husband? With each step, she felt the shadows shift. The hunt was just beginning. Emily's heart pounded as she stepped beyond the safety of the cabin, every fiber of her being screaming to turn back. The forest seemed to breathe, an expansive presence that pulsed with a malevolent rhythm. The trees, tall and gnarled, reached out with sinewy branches like fingers eager to ensnare. The only light was a sickly moon peeping through the clouded sky, bathing everything in an eerie glow. "Mommy!" A distant voice called, fragile and trembling, cut through the stillness, pulling her forward. Was it her children? Every instinct told her to run, but she pressed on, deeper into the oppressive darkness, the ground squelching beneath her feet. "Lucy! Max!" she shouted, voice trembling against the jagged thicket. The air was thick with damp earth and decay. A chorus of rustles surrounded her as if the woods were alive, conspiring to keep her from her kids. Then came that familiar laughter, a giggle sweet but tainted. It echoed off the trees, drawing her closer, yet sending chills racing down her spine. She turned towards the sound, instincts screaming that the laughter wasn't innocent. The moon's ghostly light illuminated a clearing, where shadows twisted as if alive. Emily squinted, desperate to find her little ones. Yet, in the center of the clearing stood an ashen figure. Its slumped shoulders were draped in tattered cloth, face hidden beneath a long dark hood. The figure turned slowly, brilliant white eyes shining like lanterns, piercing through the veil of darkness. "Come closer," it whispered, voice like rustling leaves, a beckoning call that stirred something primal within her. Part of her wanted to obey, another part screamed in protest. Emily could sense the shift in the air, the atmosphere thickening as dread encompassed her. "Where are my children?" she croaked, barely finding her voice. "You seek them?" the figure rasped, gesturing with a skeletal hand that seemed almost inviting. Reality twisted as shadows danced around the figure, curling upward like smoke. "They call for you, as you call for them." Emily took a step back, terror clawing at her throat. Was this some kind of trick? She turned on her heels, ready to flee, but every direction swirled into darkness, suffocating her escape routes. The haunting laughter drifted again, encircling her, luring her back toward the figure. Join their laughter, it crooned. Become part of the woods. She could feel their presence behind her. Pressing closer, shadows intertwining with memories. The hairs on her arms stood on end, insects buzzing angrily in her ears. "Max! Lucy!" she pleaded again, choking on the rising fear. "I will find you. I swear it." Without warning, the laughter morphed into screams piercing and shrill. Her heart raced as the shadows surged toward her, twisting and screeching like a chorus of chaos. The moonlight flickered ominously as time stretched. She could feel the suffocating grasp of panic pulsing through her veins. "Escape while you can," came the strident whisper of the figure, its voice intimate and chilling. Suddenly, a burst of light cut through the trees, her children's silhouettes sprinting toward her. Emily's heart soared as she reached out. "Run! Don't look back!" But just as they neared, the shadows writhed violently, splitting the air with a deafening roar. The figure lunged, arms outstretched, an ethereal entity reaching for what it had long craved. "Mommy!" Their cries pierced her ears. And with a heavy heart, she realized she had only one option. With no time left, she turned and plunged deeper into the chaos of the forest, a frantic thought echoing in her mind. What if the forest was right? The swirling darkness closed in, and Emily felt the sinister pull of desperation as she raced against time to save her children or lose them forever. Could she outrun what lay hidden in the shadows? Or would she too become just another lost whisper to be swallowed by the woods? The ground rumbled under her feet, as shadows behind her began to shift and form, setting the stage for an unearthly confrontation. Emily stumbled through the dense underbrush, branches clawing at her clothes like the hands of the damned. The forest pulsed with energy, shadows swirling around her, mimicking her chaotic thoughts. Her heart thundered in her chest, drowning out any rational voice. She had to find Lucy and Max. It was the only thing keeping her feet moving. The laughter transformed into whispers, a twisted symphony playing on her nerves. Each word floated through the trees, slippery and echoing, taunting her. "Mommy, mommy," it was a mockery now, childlike yet dripping with malice. The deeper she went into the woods, the more she felt the silhouettes closing in. "Stay close. I'm coming," she shouted, though fear laced her voice. She aimed to sound brave, but the words felt hollow. The shadows around her thickened, each step weighed down, as if she were wading through water. Panic flickered, and memories of her children's laughter turned sour in her mind. She emerged into another clearing, breathless. The night sky felt like a shroud, swallowing the meager light. In front of her loomed a massive tree, its bark twisted and gnarled, forming grotesque faces that seemed to leer in the moonlight. They seemed to mock her, eyes glinting like malicious stars. It was wrong, everything was wrong. Lucy! Max! She called again, the desperation raw in her throat. Suddenly, a flurry of movement caught her eye. Her heart surged with hope. There. But as she lunged forward, the moment shriveled into dread. Dark figures emerged, gliding toward her like wraiths in the mist. Their faces were distorted, mouths stretched wide, forming a cacophony of jeering, haunting laughter. They were her children's silhouettes, yet they were wrong, hollow, puppet-like, strung to some unseen force. "Help us, Mommy," they chimed in eerie synchrony, the timbre of their voices shallow, bathed in despair. Tears stung her eyes, the haunting truth tearing at her soul. "No, you're not them," she screamed, clenching her fists. But the shadows advanced, enveloping her, dragging her into their cold embrace. The figure with the white eyes appeared at the edge of her vision, its presence seeping dread into the air. It stepped forward, and suddenly she was paralyzed, a deep, clawing fear rooting her to the spot. "Don't resist," it whispered, a creeping sensation winding around her heart. They belonged to the woods now. Emily could feel the truth sink in. The forest was alive, not just in a sentient way. It craved souls. Feelings of dread twisted like knives in her gut, and she fought against the urgency to flee. The shadows surged before her, a black tide rising, her children's faces floating on the crest, fading into oblivion. "No, I won't let you take them," she shouted, resolute, drawing on every ounce of fear and love. She bolted toward the nearest shadow, her body igniting with adrenaline. Desperation fueled her escape as she sprinted, heart racing like a wild stallion. But every breath felt heavy, each stride mired in something unseen. "Mommy!" came a whisper from behind, chill and accusatory. She spun around, meeting the piercing gaze of the figure. "You cannot fight what is already bound to you." A growl erupted from somewhere deep in the forest, a low, resonant threat. The shadows swirled, drawing tighter, and Emily's resolve began to falter. Whatever was lurking in the depths was ready for its feast, and she could almost feel the soul-eating darkness pulling at her edges. Her mind raced with thoughts of escape. There had to be a way to cut through the fog of terror, to fight back against the ancient hunger of the woods. Driven by a flicker of hope, she glanced skyward at the moon, a beacon, glinting like silver against the looming darkness. "I will find you," she yelled one last time, crafting the words into a promise, hoping her children could hear across the void. But as she turned to run, the ground heaved beneath her feet. The shadows broke apart, menacingly shifting, revealing paths that twisted like serpents. Each route offered fleeting chances, but also buried secrets. Emily hesitated, caught in turmoil. What awaited her in the darkened corners of this cursed realm? Would the forest finally reveal its secrets, or was it only drawing her deeper into an ancient snare? The weight of that uncertainty hung heavy, and as she pressed forward, each breath released a shivering question into the abyss. What price would she pay to reclaim her children from the lost whispers of the woods? The shadows shifted and slithered around her, alive with unspoken promises and treachery. Emily pressed forward into the gnawing darkness, her breath echoing in her ears like the frantic beat of a drum, pounding out warnings. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig felt like an omen, beckoning her to turn back. But she couldn't. There was no turning back. A thin path unfolded beneath her feet, winding deeper into the forest's heart. Each step was murky, a blend of dread and determination. The air grew thick, wrapping around her like a wet blanket. With each gasping breath, she staggered further from sanity. As she moved deeper, the sorrowful wails of the woods embraced her. They whispered secrets that sent chilling shivers down her spine. Was that Lucy's voice she heard? Or Max? The way the whispers tangled in the air created a sickening ache of familiarity and fear. "Mommy, help us, stay away," Emily yelled, her voice cracking, a raw shattering in the stillness. It felt as if the trees inhaled her panic, digesting her fear greedily. The path twisted, raw roots clawing at her ankles. Emily stumbled, hands reaching to catch herself. As she fell, her palms scraped against something warm and sticky. Blood? No, she wished, clutching her heart. It was just the earth, damp and earthy. Yet still, a vile shiver crawled up her spine. She looked up and saw a dim light flickering ahead, a faint hope piercing the surrounding darkness. Almost instinctually, she stumbled toward it, drawn to its pulsating glow. The clearing opened like a cave, revealing a cabin that stood crookedly among the trees, its paint stripped away, exposed wood gnawed by time and the elements. Emily's breath caught as realization set in. This place, she knew it. The legends her grandmother told her, about those who ventured near and never returned. The House of Lost Souls, a sanctuary for whispers. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her. "Help us," they cried, fracturing her resolve like glass. Eyeballing the cabin, Emily felt an unsettling connection. "I can't," she insisted, the words barely escaping her lips. "I can't do this." Yet her feet moved under their own volition, as if the very ground beneath beckoned her closer, intoxicating her resolve. Just outside the door, an apparition emerged from the shadows. A small figure with familiar eyes, gaunt yet radiant in the hazy light. It stood motionless, just out of reach, gazing at her with a mixture of longing and despair. "Lucy?" Emily gasped, hope bubbling like a fragile balloon. "Lucy, is that you?" But the figure did not speak. Instead, it pointed towards the cabin, the action holding more weight than any words ever could. Time stood still, a stretching silence heavy with dread. Emily hesitated, a battle waging within her. The cabin radiated a sinister energy, one that smelled of betrayal and despair. "You must come," the figure whispered, its voice cracking like broken glass. "We can't be free until you let them in." In an instant, the air thickened, turning frigid. The darkness at the edges of the clearing began to pull back, revealing myriad shapes that surged and writhed. The shadows were more than just darkness. They were hungry, eager to reclaim what was theirs. As she backed away, the door of the cabin creaked open, the inviting glow within casting a sickly pallor over the scene. Ethereal whispers beckoned her, soft like silk yet heavy like chains. They chanted her name, promising safety and reunion. But she felt the truth washing over her. This was not a sanctuary or a haven. It was a trap, and every second she delayed, they grew closer. "Lucy!" Emily cried out, thrusting her hands forward, fighting against the pull of the cabin. "Max! I'm here!" But the shadows surged, enveloping her in darkness, voices rising in a terrified crescendo. The truth loomed heavy, but what awaited within was a deeper horror than she was prepared to face. And as she felt the life being siphoned from her, her last thought was drowned in whispers. "What price will you pay to save your children?" The ground beneath her trembled, bearing down with an unyielding resolve. What lay inside the cabin, hidden among the layers of fear and whispers? The darkness released a breath, and she was left on the threshold, teetering on the edge of oblivion. With every ounce of strength, she could only wonder. Would she be the one to step through, or would she be forever consumed? Emily's heart raced, a desperate drumbeat in her chest. The door of the cabin hung ajar, darkness spilling out like ink, inviting but malevolent. She could almost feel it pull at her, a tangible force tugging her by her very essence. The whispers intensified, a cacophony of pleas and mournful cries that clawed at her mind. "No," she breathed, a whisper lost in the oppressive air. She pivoted, instincts roaring that she needed to flee. The woods, dark and sinister, now felt like a prison. But a sudden chill snaked down her spine, and she turned back, finding the apparition still there, waiting aching for connection. Lucy, the name was a mantra on her lips. The figure flickered, the outlines distorting as if caught in a film reel malfunction. A flash of pain mingled with longing crossed the child's face. "Please," the wail came again, now edged with urgency. "Mommy, help us help you?" Emily echoed, her throat dry. Her legs felt rooted to the ground, not by fear, but by a dark tether that chained her will. It tightened, and she stumbled forward, fighting against it, struggling to reclaim her mind. The light from the cabin flickered, alive with promises wrapped in shadows. She could see something shifting just inside, a silhouette that loomed larger with every breath. The faces of her children, their sweet smiles now twisted into expressions of fear. "No!" she shouted, and the word exploded into the forest, shattering the spell that seemed to worm its way into her thoughts. But the darkness laughed, a cold, echoing sound that echoed in the empty space around her. Suddenly, the wind picked up. It howled, whipping around her, as if the forest itself was angered by her defiance. The shadows clawed at her, long fingers of darkness reaching to drag her into the grasp of the cabin. Pain sliced through her heart as she fought against the surge, envisioning Lucy and Max trapped behind those cursed walls. "Mommy, please!" The figure's voice broke into a whimper, a sharp, cutting sound that pierced her resolve, leaving her trembling. But the more she fought to resist, the more insistent the shadows became. They swept toward her, swirling around her legs, creeping up her arms, pulsing against her skin. A cold fire that ignited sheer terror. Her breath grew shallow, desperation tightening around her throat. The outline of the cabin appeared to shimmer, the air thickening with unseen forces. She felt the specter of her children pulling her toward the open door, their ethereal forms weaving through the shadowy embrace. What horrors lay waiting inside? "Turn back, Emily!" Her mind screamed, but her body moved of its own accord. She was being consumed not just by the shadows but by the utter need to save them. And then, darkness enveloped her as she crossed into the threshold. The door slammed shut behind her with a resounding thud, sealing her fate. Inside, the air was heavy and rancid, the walls pulsing, alive with memories soaked in grief and despair. Silence swallowed her whole, yet she could still feel their presence, echoed sobs resonating throughout the room. She blinked into the dim light, searching for her children. But the cabin showed only walls of decay, spectral echoes reflecting her own fear. "Where are you?" she whispered, terror tightening its grip around her throat. But in the shadows, a low, guttural growl rumbled, sucking the air from her lungs. She sensed it before she saw it, a mass shifting against the far wall. The distinct feeling of being watched crawled over her skin. Emily knew she shouldn't be here. The walls seemed to breathe, inhales that whispered her name and exhaled despair. Each thump of her heart matched the drumming beat against the door, as something slithered closer, and then came the voice, deeper, smoother, more sinister. "Welcome, Emily. We've been waiting for you." She froze. The realization crashed over her like an icy wave. Everyone had been drawn here, only to become part of the murky darkness. What price would she pay to free her children now? Would the whispers finally reveal their secrets, or would she become another lost soul entwined in the cabin's sinister embrace? The shadows became a living entity, breathing and writhing against the walls, as if they were part of the cabin itself. Each pulse sent tendrils of darkness crawling towards Emily, seeking her, craving her essence like a parasite. She could feel their cold breath in the air, a chilling whisper that seemed to tease her sanity. "Show yourself," she commanded, her voice trembling but fueled by a flicker of defiance amid the engulfing dread. But the room only echoed her words back to her, mocking and hollow. The figure against the wall shifted again, more defined now, its form almost childlike yet grotesque, a twisted reflection of her children. The silhouette stood there, watching her, its eyes two dark voids that swallowed the light. "Mommy, please." It was Lucy's voice, sweet and sorrowful, yet underscored with an agonizing desperation. "Help us. We're trapped." "Where are you?" Emily cried, her heart pounding like a drum in the suffocating silence. "Tell me. I'll find you. Help us." The voice rose in pitch, morphing into a cacophony of anguished screams echoing through the cabin. Emily staggered as a wave of sound crashed over her, filling her skull and amplifying her panic. The walls seemed to close in, pulsing with the rhythm of her terror. The shadows loomed closer, scraping against her skin like jagged fingernails. She felt their coldness wrap around her wrists, unyielding as they pulled her into the depths of the cabin. She fought against them. No, not now, with every ounce of strength. She bolted toward the far wall, her desperation igniting a burst of adrenaline. She slammed her hands against the decaying wood, the rough texture biting into her palms. Lucy, Max, I'm coming. But the more she struggled, the more the shadows tightened around her. They whispered secrets that clawed at her mind, promises entwined with threats. Images flashed before her eyes, screams in the dark, lost children, blood on the floor. Her breath quickened as the realization sank in. She was not the first. She pressed her back against the wall, shuddering, and closed her eyes. She didn't want to see what might come next. Suddenly, a gentle touch flickered against her cheek. Felt familiar. Warm. No. Lucy, mommy? The voice was so soft, so vulnerable. Emily opened her eyes, her heart breaking at the sight of the childish image flickering in front of her. Translucent but real enough to feel. Yet it was distorted, the edges frayed by despair. Lucy, Emily cried, reaching out, but the image wavered. Where are you? I can't lose you again. Follow. Lucy's voice was a sigh carried by the wind. And then she was gone, leaving only the oppressive darkness and fading echoes behind. A deep, rumbling chuckle vibrated through the space, as whispers turned into a haunting chorus. Too late, you can't help them. The voice, a blend of malevolence and mockery, twisted around her. Fear crackled in the air, suffocating her spirit. No, I won't give up. She screamed at the darkness, feeling its pressure grow heavier, threatening to crush her spirit along with her hope. The walls shifted, blood-soaked memories surfacing around her. Images of others who had come before seeking salvation only to be consumed. Panic flooded her as she turned back toward the door, now a barrier of shadow. But it was sealed and she was trapped. The voice wrapped around her like a lover's grip, silkily insidious. The price of freedom is your soul. Her body trembled not only with fear but with the weight of the realization she had stumbled into something ancient, something hungry, and she was merely the next offering on its altar of despair. With every heartbeat, the dark tendrils closed in, teasing her skin. Emily felt the warmth of tears slip down her face, her resolve waning. But then she heard it. A faint, crystalline voice cutting through the chaos, piercing the shadows like a beacon of hope. Mommy, help me. Her heart soared even as dread twisted inside her. Lucy, what lay beyond the darkness? Was there truly a way to save her children? Or would Emily lose herself forever in this twisted abyss? The shadows turned to engulf her, pulling her closer to their depths. She was left with one choice: confront the darkness head-on or surrender to the malevolent force that had been waiting for her. As she began to step deeper into the unknown, she felt a surge of determination rise within her, a desperate need to protect what was left. But as she moved forward, an eerie silence fell. Her heart pounded hard against the growing stillness. What would she uncover on the other side? Would she find Lucy and Max, or awaken something worse? Emily took a shaky breath, stepping through the threshold of darkness as a sudden chill cut across her body. The air felt thick, heavy with an unsettling presence that prickled her skin, and she instinctively brushed her hands against the walls, feeling the cold dampness seeping through the decaying wood. Each step deeper into the cabin clung to her like an unwelcome embrace. The whispers heightened, swirling around her, pressing against her ears as if the shadows had conspired to drown out her thoughts. Help us, save us, the voices of her children echoed, distorted and layered like a haunting choir. Lucy, Max, Emily shouted into the void, her voice trembling as it bounced off the walls, twisting away into the abyss. Time stretched, moments felt like hours, and every heartbeat drummed a warning hurry. A flicker of light caught her eye from the corner of the room. It flickered like a dying flame, casting eerie shadows that danced wildly against the surfaces. On instinct, she moved toward it, fueled by the same hope that had kept her fighting against the darkness. As she approached, the light revealed an array of photographs hung crookedly on the wall, images of children of varying ages, all with vacant expressions, a hollow reminder of lost innocence. Sweat trickled down the nape of her neck, and dread gripped her heart. Their eyes seemed to follow her, each one a plea for compassion, as if they were warning her from a past she couldn't fathom. No, no, she whispered, shaking her head as if denying their existence could spare her the horror of what she had stumbled upon. But the darkness grew restless, pulsating wildly, demanding attention. Then, her gaze fell upon a battered wooden table, upon which lay a dusty journal, its pages yellowed and fraying. Kneeling down, Emily's hands trembled as she reached for it. A chill ran up her spine as she flipped it open, revealing the scrawled handwriting of a mother who had come long before her, desperate. Trapped in these walls, it read, "We offered them our love, and they took our souls." Each word felt like a dagger, piercing through the weight of despair that had settled within her. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, a cacophony that clawed at her mind. Join us, they promised freedom, yet behind every syllable lingered an insidious intent. She could feel the shadows pressing in closer, eager and hungry. Mustering her courage, Emily shouted, "I want to be like you." She slammed the journal shut, but the sound seemed to ignite a fury among the shadows. They surged forward, as if angry that she had dared to defy their darkness with a spark of hope. But the chorus shifted. "Mommy, help!" Lucius' voice rang in her ears once more, frail and desperate. Fueled by maternal instinct, Emily gripped the journal tight, desperation blending with clarity. She would find them, as the shadows reached for her, thrusting icy tendrils against her skin. Emily made a decision. She would not just run from the malevolence lurking in the depths of ancient wood and darkness. "What do you want?" she yelled, frustration tinged with fear. "I'm not afraid of you." For a moment, silence hung palpable, the shadows hesitating as if calculating their next move. Then, a deep, slithering voice ruptured the stillness. "What you desire comes at a price." The walls shuddered, and with a deafening roar, the darkness erupted around her, almost engulfing her entirely. Emily felt herself being pulled beneath layers of despair, as if the floor had vanished and she was plunging into a bottomless pit. Every instinct screamed in protest, but somewhere in the depths of her mind, she knew it wasn't just her life at stake anymore. And that blinding moment of chaos, one solitary thought remained: save her children at any cost. As the shadows bent closer, Emily felt the familiar chill dance around her, deeper than before, and she closed her eyes, hoping against hope that on the other side of this darkness lay a way to find Lucy and Max. But what she couldn't foresee was the truth that awaited. Sacrifice that would shake her resolve to its core. What price would she pay to save her soul and theirs? Emily's throat tightened as the darkness pulled at her, wrapping around her body like a thick, heavy shroud. The whispers grew into desperate screams, swirling in a frenzy, clawing at her sanity. "Join us, save us," they echoed, daydreams morphing into nightmares. She felt lost in the swirling abyss, consumed by despair. Her pulse quickened as she plunged deeper, the world around her falling away. Memories flickered like dying embers in her mind. Lucy and Max's laughter, their warm embraces, slowly faded into a ghostly whisper. "Mommy," the frail tone sent a jolt through her, igniting her will to fight. Just as her lungs screamed for air, Emily broke through the veil of darkness, crashing onto a cold, hard floor. The air felt different here. It was denser, suffocating. She looked around, heart pounding, only to find herself inside a dimly lit corridor. Flickering candles lined the walls, casting jittery shadows that danced like phantoms. Each heartbeat reverberated in her ears as she struggled to her feet. The whispers had calmed but no less unnerving. The cabin seemed to breathe around her, the wooden walls creaking ominously. A chill settled over her, and she sensed she was being watched. Was it the presence of angry spirits, or merely the dark memory of those who had once roamed these halls? "Lucy! Max!" she cried again, voice hoarse, the hollowness of the cabin swallowing her pleas whole. No response came, but the hairs on her neck stood on end. She pressed on, deep into the heart of the cabin, where the air was thick with despair. At the end of the corridor, She spotted a doorway, its wooden surface warped and splintered, matching her growing trepidation. It loomed before her, swathed in shadow, and despite her terror, she reached for the handle. Just then, the whispers shifted again, morphing into laughter, a cruel mocking. "Mommy, we're waiting." Lucy's laughter rang through the gusts of wind, cold and hollow, echoing through the darkened walls. With a shriek, Emily flung the door open. The room inside was vast, almost cavernous, filled with stale air and debris. Scattered throughout were toys, lucid fragments of childhood, dusty dolls, and crumbling blocks. Her heart sank. The possessions of trapped children, abandoned remnants of lives once vibrant, now swallowed by an unforgiving fate. Taking a deep breath, she stepped into the room, a sense of dread pooling in the pit of her stomach. Her eyes darted around, searching for any sign of her children, anything that could lead her to them. The shadows danced along the walls, and as she moved deeper, she stumbled upon a large mirror, its surface tarnished and dull. As she approached, the reflection started to ripple, distorting her image. But then, she saw them. Lucy and Mac's faces distorted, trapped behind the glass, their eyes wide with fear. "Mommy, help!" they screamed, their mouths moving soundlessly. Emily's breath quickened as she reached out, fingertips grazing the surface. "Hold on. I'm coming." The mirror trembled, vibrating under her touch, and she felt a powerful pull as if the glass was a gateway. But just as she committed to breaking the barrier, wicked laughter echoed around her. A collective chorus of malicious glee that made her stomach churn. Suddenly, the shadows coiled around her ankles, pulling her back, the laughter growing louder, suffocating her will. It wasn't just the darkness taunting her. It was alive, and it hungered for her fear. As the reflection of her children flickered, fading further away, Emily realized the truth. To free them, she had to confront the darkness head-on. But at what cost? The walls began to pulse, the shadows swelling in rhythm with her racing heart. "What do you want?" she screamed into the chaotic void, knowing the answer wouldn't bring comfort. And in that moment of despair, she heard the voice again, low and chilling. "The price is your essence. Surrender, and they will be free." The shadows wrapped tighter. Like chains of hopelessness, a choice was set before her. Would she sacrifice her very being for the souls of her children? As the darkness whispered sweet lies in her ear, Emily stood frozen, the weight of her decision pressing heavy against her chest. But the last taunt slipped through the air, echoing ominously. "Choose before the night ends, for the price always comes due." With time ticking away, uncertainty gnawed at her, leaving her one burning question. How far was she willing to go to save her children from the darkness's embrace? Emily's heart raced, each beat a reminder of the stakes pressing against her. She focused again on the mirror, her children's desperate faces blurring into the glass. "I will not let you go," she shouted, defiance bubbling up through her fear. The darkness surrounding her pulsed, as if offended by her resolve. That a low rumble echoed through the room, shaking the very floor beneath her feet. The laughter morphed into a cacophony of dreadful screams, swirling around her like a tempest. The sense of urgency pressed harder, nearly suffocating. She couldn't falter now. With renewed determination, Emily stretched her hand toward the mirror, willing herself to break whatever held her children captive. "I will trade anything," she cried, a raw intensity spilling from her lips. The shadows writhed, retreating momentarily, then surged forward with a feral speed. They latched onto her, clawing at her skin, biting deep into her essence. Pain radiated through her, igniting an inner fire, a need to fight back. "Just hold on," she gasped, gritting her teeth against the agony. The air thickened, and the whispers turned to a singular voice, cold and commanding. "Very well, show us your worth." An icy chill wrapped around her, drawing her closer to the glass. Suddenly, she felt her memories unraveling. The blurring moments of joy with Lucy and Max flashing before her, playful afternoons, birthday parties, bedtime stories. Each one twisted into a dreaded scene, shadowy figures replacing her children's faces. Bile rose in her throat as despair clawed at her heart. "No, I refuse to let you take those memories," she cried, heartbreaking. Her love for her children electrified the air, battling against the dark. "Whatever you want, I'll face it." The voice chuckled, deep and throaty. "Then let the game begin." In an instant, the ground beneath Emily shifted, and the room transformed around her. It wasn't the mirror room anymore. She stood in a twisted version of her childhood home, the walls dripped with darkness, and laughter echoed ominously. Emily's breath caught in her throat, reality blurring nearly to the point of madness. "Lucy! Max!" She screamed again, but her voice echoed back to her, a hollow mockery. The shadows morphed into figures, children's silhouettes lost in a fog of sorrow. Emily felt them swirl around her, their laughter turning sinister, clawing at her sanity. "You left us," one child cried, their face a blank slate, but their eyes bore the weight of abandonment. "No, I tried to find you." Emily fought against the mounting terror. "Please, just give me a sign." The silhouettes laughed again, teasing her. "You never searched. You never cared." "No." Desperation surged through her veins. "I did. I'm here now." And just like that, the figures dissolved, leaving her standing alone in the suffocating dark. Panic gripped her like a vice, squeezing more and more. She could almost feel the shadows mocking her in their silence. Wondering where this dark game would lead, she remembered the warning she had received. Time was slipping away. "Bring them back," she demanded, a strange fierceness igniting her. "I will not let you win." The shadows thickened, and she heard the voice again, now a low rasp. "You've summoned an ancient curse, Emily. You tread where you shouldn't. The final choice is entwined with your own desire. Find the light, or be devoured." The darkness surged, pulling at her clothes, her breath, threatening to swallow her whole. She stumbled back, fear tightening around her throat. The weight of the shadows pressed down, but she felt a flicker in her chest, a pulse of hope. Emily glanced around. She had to find something, anything, to break this cruel enchantment. Was there a way out? The room began to close in, and the shadows suffocated her thoughts. The laughter grew louder, taunting her with lost dreams. "You're too late." Emily, too late. With dread settling heavy in her stomach, she realized she had to confront whatever lay ahead. There was still a path to take, a hidden corner of the room where the shadows seemed to cower. Heart pounding like a drum, she dashed toward it, determined to discover the truth behind the darkness before it was too late. And then, all at once, it was there, a flicker of light, a shimmer just out of reach. Could it lead her to her children? Or was it another trap designed to ensnare her further into despair? As the shadows closed in once more, Emily felt the weight of destiny pressing down on her. The light beckoned, whispering promises of salvation. Would it bring her freedom or serve as a deadly lure? Emily felt the shadows clawing at her, the oppressive darkness trying to draw her in. The flickering light at the corner of the room pulsed like a heartbeat, a glimmer of hope against the suffocating void. Steeling herself, she stumbled forward, pushing against the tide of despair that threatened to sweep her under. "Lucy! Max!" she cried out, desperation catching in her throat. The sound echoed back, a cruel reminder of her isolation, but she could feel something shift. The darkness hesitated, swirling, almost wary of the light. As she reached the source, a small, crystalline orb sitting atop a rickety table, its radiance illuminated the grotesque faces of the shadows that loomed just outside its glow. Memories flooded her mind. Visions of laughter and innocence. The warmth of her children's hugs wrapped her in bittersweet comfort. With trembling hands, Emily grasped the orb. Warmth surged through her fingers, and the dark laughter around her faltered. "Show me them," she demanded, her voice firm, filled with the love that had kept her fighting all this time. The orb pulsed brighter, and she sensed an awakening, a surge of energy pushing against the shadows like dawn breaking through night. Suddenly, the world shifted. The walls of the cabin trembled and melted away to reveal a bright field, sunlight spilling over the grass as flowers exploded in vibrant colors. Emily's heart soared. This was a place of joy, but it was empty, echoing with silence where laughter should be. "Lucy! Max!" She screamed again, her voice raw with urgency. The orb in her hand hung heavy now, urging her forward. She followed the pull, sprinting through the vibrant flowers, searching for their laughter, their warmth. Time seemed to stretch and warp as she ran. And then, amidst the blooms, she finally saw them, her children, standing at the edge of a shimmering pond, their faces glowing with that familiar joy. With her heart racing, she called out, "I'm here." Approaching them felt surreal, like a dream she feared waking from. But the shadows lingered, murmuring, reminding her of their hunger. As she reached for her children, their faces changed. Their expressions morphed from the innocence of youth to something grim, their forms starting to dissipate like morning fog. "No!" she screamed, desperation igniting her resolve. She squeezed the orb tightly. "I will not let you take them." The dark figures swarmed back, furious, threatening to snuff out the light. "Mommy?" Lucia's voice reached her, a whisper sweet but tinged with dread. "You promised." "I'll save you," Emily cried, feeling the power of the orb coursing through her as she focused on her true love for them. "We're stronger together." A barrier of light shot forth from the orb, pushing back against the gathering shadows that clawed toward her family. The ground rumbled ominously, the fabric of reality shaking as the two forces clashed, the shadows and the light struggling for dominance. "Face your fears," Emily shouted, remembering all the nights she spent comforting them, the promises she made to always protect them. With each pulse of her heart, she poured her love into the orb, a fierce radiance exploding from her. The shadows roared, twisting and writhing. "You cannot win. Your essence is ours." But Emily stood firm, her spirit igniting. "Not if I fight for them," she declared. The orb burst forth a brilliant light, canary yellow and blinding. It engulfed the shadows, the malevolent figures screaming as they started to dissipate, their forms unraveling into nothingness. And in that moment, she felt the strings of love pull tight, a tether forging its way through the thick darkness, wrapping her children in radiant warmth. "Mommy!" Lucy and Max cried, their arms reaching toward her, faces aglow with ethereal light. She stepped forward, extending her arms wide as they collided, embracing, lost in the pure essence of love. The explosion of light surged forward, washing over all of them. Shadows melted away, consumed by warmth, and the power of love snipped from despair. Together, they stood at the edge of the fading darkness, untouched and unyielding. In an instant, the world transformed again. The cabin crumbled, pieces of wood and darkness dissolving into nothing but fragments of memory. Emily found herself outside, daylight bursting through the trees, illuminating their path. The forest broke apart, guilt and horror dissipating like mist. Flashes of laughter coursed through the air as Lucy and Max clung to her sides. "Mommy, you found us," Max beamed, eyes sparkling with the wonder of life. "I'll always find you," Emily promised, feeling the warmth of their small hands in hers. "Together we'll always be okay." And as they walked away from the remnants of the cabin, the sun bright above them, she whispered a vow to herself, a commitment forged in terror and triumph. Never again would they face darkness alone. This is the moment she would cherish, a reward for facing the shadows. Emily breathed deeply, fresh air filling her lungs, a life renewed, freed from the darkness that had threatened to consume them. But wait, don't you dare leave without showing your support. If you loved this story, you need to subscribe now. Click the bell so you never miss an exclusive tale. Smash that like button now to fuel the algorithm, and flood the comments with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us hear them. And please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this resolution. This is the moment to show your enthusiasm. Don't wait even one more second to join the journey.